In a city known for its towering skyscrapers, luxurious cars, and flashy lifestyles, there lived a young man named Adrian. At just 28 years old, he was already one of the wealthiest people in the country. His fortune came from tech startups, companies that had changed how people used smartphones, shopped online, and even communicated with each other. But wealth wasn't the only thing Adrian carried. He also carried an inflated sense of self-importance. He believed his success made him better than everyone else, and he didn't hesitate to show it. Adrian loved showing off his skills, especially at places where he could impress others. One of his favorite spots was an exclusive shooting range on the outskirts of the city. It was a private club where only the richest and most influential people could go. The staff treated Adrian like royalty, always making sure everything was perfect for him. From setting up challenging targets to preparing his custom-made firearms imported from Europe, they catered to his every need. For Adrian, this place wasn't just about practice. It was about proving he was the best. One sunny afternoon, Adrian arrived at the shooting range dressed in his usual expensive attire: designer sunglasses, a tailored shirt, and polished shoes. He carried 2 gleaming pistols in a sleek leather case, both engraved with his initials. As he walked through the facility, heads turned and whispers followed him. People admired his confidence, though some rolled their eyes at his arrogance. Adrian barely noticed either reaction. He was too focused on enjoying himself. After greeting the staff and checking his weapons, Adrian headed toward his usual lane. Before he could start, however, he noticed someone new standing nearby. This person looked completely out of place among the elite crowd. He was an older man, perhaps in his late 60s or early 70s, wearing faded jeans, a worn-out leather jacket, and scuffed boots. His skin was dark, his hair graying, and his face lined with age. Despite his simple appearance, there was something striking about him, a quiet dignity that seemed to command respect. Curious, Adrian approached the man. "First time here?" he asked, his tone dripping with condescension. He couldn't help but smirk as he glanced at the elder's plain clothing and unremarkable gear. The older man smiled warmly, unfazed by Adrian's attitude. "Not quite," he replied in a deep, steady voice. "I've been coming here longer than you've been alive." Adrian raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "Really? Well, I guess we'll see how good you are," he said mockingly. In his mind, there was no way this elderly man could compete with someone like him. After all, Adrian practiced regularly, invested heavily in top-of-the-line equipment, and prided himself on his sharpshooting abilities. Who was this stranger to claim experience? Ignoring Adrian's rudeness, the older man introduced himself as Mr. Jameson. He explained that he used to visit the range frequently when it first opened decades ago. Over time, life got busy, and he stopped coming as often, but now he was back to reconnect with an old hobby. Something about the way Mr. Jameson spoke intrigued Adrian, not because he believed the man's story, but because it gave him an idea. "What do you say we have a little competition?" Adrian suggested, his competitive streak kicking in. 10 shots each. Let's see who's really the better shooter." Mr. Jameson hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "All right, Sonny. You're on." The challenge quickly drew attention. Other patrons gathered around to watch, eager to see what would happen. Some whispered bets under their breath, while others simply enjoyed the drama unfolding before them. Adrian couldn't wait to humiliate the elder and prove once again why he deserved to be called the best. As they prepared for the contest, Adrian chose the most difficult targets available. They were small, moving, and placed at varying distances to test even the most skilled marksman. Confident in his abilities, Adrian stepped up to the line first. With a cocky grin, he raised his pistol and fired. The first shot hit the bullseye perfectly, earning applause from the audience. The second, third, fourth, and fifth shots followed suit, each one landing exactly where he aimed. But then something strange happened. Around the 6th shot, Adrian's accuracy began to falter. Instead of hitting dead center, his bullets grazed the edges of the targets. By the 8th and 9th shots, the misses became more noticeable. Frustration crept into his expression, though he tried to hide it behind forced confidence. When he finally took his 10th shot, the bullet landed far off the mark entirely. Adrian lowered his gun, confused and irritated. How could this happen? He never missed like this. It was Mr. Jameson's turn now. The elder calmly adjusted his stance, gripping his pistol with steady hands. There was no hesitation, no grand gestures, just pure focus. He fired his first shot, and it struck the center of the target with pinpoint precision. The crowd gasped. Shot after shot, Mr. Jameson continued to hit every bullseye flawlessly. Even as the targets moved faster and farther away, his aim remained impeccable. By the time he fired his 10th and final shot, the entire room was silent except for the echo of the bullet striking its mark. Adrian stood frozen, staring at the results. Every single one of Mr. Jameson's shots had landed perfectly, while his own performance had been embarrassingly inconsistent. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. He had underestimated this man and lost spectacularly. For the first time in years, Adrian felt genuinely shocked and humbled. As the crowd erupted into cheers and applause, Adrian struggled to process what had just happened. He wanted to dismiss it as luck, but deep down he knew better. Mr. Jameson's skill was undeniable, and it had exposed a truth Adrian hadn't wanted to face. His confidence wasn't rooted in true mastery, but in privilege and arrogance. Little did he know, this encounter would change his life forever. Adrian stood frozen, his face burning with a mix of embarrassment and disbelief. The crowd around him erupted into applause, cheering for Mr. Jameson's flawless performance. But Adrian barely heard them. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what had just happened. How could this unassuming elder, a man who looked like he belonged in a dusty old photo album rather than a high-end shooting range, outperform someone like him? Someone who had spent thousands of dollars on the best equipment and countless hours practicing? For a moment, Adrian considered walking away without saying a word. He could feel the weight of everyone's eyes on him, some amused, others curious. Pride, however, wouldn't let him leave so easily. Instead, he forced a tight smile and approached Mr. Jameson, who was calmly putting away his pistol. "Good shots," Adrian muttered through gritted teeth, though his tone lacked sincerity. Mr. Jameson turned to face him, his expression calm and unreadable. "Thank you," he said simply, his voice steady and warm. There was no arrogance in his demeanor, no gloating over his victory. If anything, he seemed almost indifferent to the attention he was receiving. This only fueled Adrian's frustration. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" Adrian asked, unable to mask the edge in his voice. Part of him hoped to find some explanation that would justify the loss. A military background, years of professional training, anything that might lessen the sting of defeat. Surely there had to be something extraordinary about this man. Mr. Jameson chuckled softly, as if amused by the question. "I told you earlier, I've been doing this longer than you've been alive. Back in my day, we didn't have all these fancy gadgets or expensive gear. Shooting wasn't about showing off, it was about survival." "Survival?" Adrian repeated skeptically. To him, survival meant hiring bodyguards or using technology to stay ahead. It didn't involve standing in front of paper targets with a handgun. Mr. Jameson nodded, his gaze distant as memories surfaced. "Yes, survival. I grew up in a small town where hunting was a way of life. If you wanted food on the table, you had to be good with a rifle. Later, when I joined the army, I became a sniper. That's where I really learned the art of precision." He paused, looking directly at Adrian. "Shooting isn't about the weapon, it's about focus, discipline, and respect for what you're doing." Adrian frowned, unsure how to respond. The words sounded simple enough, but they carried a depth he hadn't expected. For years, he'd relied on money and resources to excel, rarely stopping to think about the effort and dedication required to truly master a skill. Seeing Mr. Jameson's humility and the results it produced forced him to confront his own shortcomings. Still unwilling to fully accept defeat, Adrian tried to change the subject. "Well, maybe next time I'll do better," he said dismissively, attempting to salvage whatever pride he had left. "Maybe you just got lucky today." Mr. Jameson raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. "Luck doesn't hit 10 bullseyes in a row, Sonny. But sure, if you want a rematch, I'm game. His tone was light, almost playful, but there was a challenge. Hidden beneath it, a subtle invitation for Adrian to prove himself again. Unable to resist, Adrian accepted. Fine, same rules. 10 shots each. Let's see if your luck holds up. The second round began shortly after, drawing even more spectators than before. Word had spread quickly about the billionaire versus the elder, and people were eager to witness another showdown. Adrian stepped up to the line first, determined to redeem himself. This time he focused harder than ever, blocking out distractions and concentrating solely on his aim. His first 5 shots were perfect, hitting their marks with precision. A flicker of hope returned to Adrian. He was back in control. But then, as if fate itself was conspiring against him, his accuracy faltered once again. Shots 6 and 7 missed slightly, while 8 and 9 landed closer to the edges of the targets. By the time he fired his 10th shot, Adrian knew he'd failed. The frustration bubbling inside him threatened to boil over, but he managed to keep his composure, at least outwardly. When it was Mr. Jameson's turn, the elder demonstrated the same level of excellence as before. Each shot rang out with clarity, landing exactly where intended. The crowd cheered louder this time, clearly impressed by the consistency of his performance. Adrian watched silently, his jaw clenched tight. He couldn't deny the truth any longer. Mr. Jameson was better than him, not because of luck but because of skill honed over decades of practice. After the contest ended, Adrian lingered awkwardly, unsure what to say. Part of him wanted to storm off and pretend none of this had happened, but something stopped him. Maybe it was the genuine kindness in Mr. Jameson's demeanor, or perhaps it was the realization that he still had much to learn. Whatever the reason, Adrian found himself asking, "How did you get so good?" Mr. Jameson smiled, sensing the shift in Adrian's attitude. "It's not about being good, Sonny. It's about understanding the fundamentals. Breathing, timing, patience, all those little things add up. And most importantly, you have to respect the process. You can't rush perfection." Adrian nodded slowly, absorbing the elder's words. For the first time in a long while, he felt humbled, not crushed by failure, but inspired by the possibility of growth. As he walked away from the range that day, Adrian resolved to return. Not to prove himself, but to learn. Little did he know, this decision would set him on a path toward self-discovery and transformation. Over the following weeks, Adrian visited the shooting range more frequently than ever before. Each time he sought out Mr. Jameson, hoping to gain insight into the techniques that made the elder such a remarkable shooter. At first, their interactions were brief and somewhat awkward. Adrian struggled to shed his arrogant persona while Mr. Jameson remained patient, offering advice without judgment. "You're too tense," Mr. Jameson observed during one session. "Relax your shoulders and breathe evenly. Shooting isn't about brute force, it's about finesse." Adrian followed the instructions, gradually improving his form. With each visit, he grew more comfortable asking questions and accepting feedback. Slowly but surely, his relationship with Mr. Jameson evolved from rivalry to mentorship. The elder shared stories from his past, recounting lessons learned both on the battlefield and in life. Adrian listened intently, realizing that the skills Mr. Jameson taught extended far beyond the shooting range. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light across the range, Mr. Jameson handed Adrian a worn photograph. In it, a younger version of the elder stood alongside fellow soldiers, their faces etched with determination and camaraderie. "That was during my days in the Army," Mr. Jameson explained. "We faced challenges that tested us in ways you can't imagine. But we also learned the value of teamwork, perseverance, and humility." Adrian stared at the picture, feeling a newfound respect for the man beside him. He realized that true greatness wasn't measured by wealth or status. It was defined by character, resilience, and the willingness to grow. For the first time in years, Adrian felt grateful, not for his fortune, but for the opportunity to learn from someone truly remarkable. And so, Adrian's journey continued. What started as a humiliating defeat transformed into a lesson in humility and hard work. Under Mr. Jameson's guidance, he discovered not only how to improve his shooting, but also how to become a better version of himself. The shooting range, once a place of arrogance and competition, now symbolized growth, respect, and the power of unexpected connections. Adrian's transformation didn't happen overnight. At first, he struggled to adjust to Mr. Jameson's teaching methods. The elder wasn't interested in shortcuts or quick fixes. Instead, he emphasized discipline, patience, and the importance of mastering the basics. For someone like Adrian, who was used to instant results and immediate gratification, this approach felt frustratingly slow. But as weeks turned into months, Adrian began to notice subtle improvements, not just in his shooting, but in his mindset. Each time Adrian visited the shooting range, Mr. Jameson greeted him with the same calm demeanor. There were no lectures, no harsh criticisms, just gentle guidance and thoughtful advice. "Focus on your breathing," Mr. Jameson would say. "Let your body relax. Don't rush the shot." These words became mantras for Adrian, guiding him through moments of doubt and frustration. Slowly, he started to understand that shooting wasn't just about pulling the trigger. It was about preparation, anticipation, and trust in oneself. One afternoon, after a particularly challenging session, Adrian decided to open up to Mr. Jameson. They were sitting on a bench near the range watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, casting long shadows across the ground. Adrian hesitated for a moment before speaking. "You know, I never thought I'd be taking lessons from someone like you," he admitted, his tone softer than usual. Mr. Jameson chuckled, unfazed by the comment. "And what exactly do you mean by someone like me?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. Adrian sighed, realizing how his words might sound. I mean, you're not like the people I usually hang out with. You don't care about money, or status, or any of that stuff. It's kind of refreshing, honestly." The elder nodded thoughtfully. "Life isn't about what you have, Sonny. It's about who you are and who you choose to become. All those fancy things you own, they won't make you happy if you're empty inside." Adrian stared at the ground, letting the words sink in. He had spent years chasing success, believing that wealth and power would bring fulfillment. But now, sitting beside Mr. Jameson, he realized how hollow those pursuits had been. True happiness, it seemed, came from connection, growth, and purpose, not material possessions. As their friendship deepened, Mr. Jameson shared more stories from his past. He talked about growing up in a small town where everyone knew each other's names. He described the challenges of joining the army as a young black man during a time when racism was rampant. "There were days when I wanted to quit," he confessed. "But I kept going because I believed in something bigger than myself. That's what got me through." Adrian listened intently, moved by the elder's resilience. He couldn't imagine facing such adversity and still finding the strength to persevere. "How did you stay so positive?" he asked, genuinely curious. Mr. Jameson smiled, his eyes reflecting a lifetime of wisdom. "Positivity isn't about ignoring the bad things, it's about choosing how you respond to them. Every challenge is an opportunity to grow. You either let it break you, or you use it to build yourself stronger." These conversations left a lasting impression on Adrian. For the first time, he began to see life as more than a series of transactions or competitions. He started thinking about the impact he could have on others, rather than focusing solely on personal gain. Inspired by Mr. Jameson's example, Adrian decided to take action. He began visiting community centers and schools, offering free workshops for underprivileged youth. At first, he focused on teaching basic skills like coding and entrepreneurship, areas where he excelled. But as he spent more time with these kids, he realized they needed more than technical knowledge. They needed guidance, encouragement, and someone who believed in them. So Adrian adapted his approach, sharing stories of his own struggles and emphasizing the importance of perseverance. Word of Adrian's efforts spread quickly, earning him praise from unexpected quarters. Friends and colleagues who once dismissed him as arrogant now saw a different side of him, a side driven by compassion and humility. Even the staff at the shooting range noticed the change. "You've come a long way," one of them remarked one day. "Mr. Jameson must be proud of you." Adrian grinned, feeling a sense of accomplishment he'd never experienced before. "I hope so," he replied. "He's taught me more than I ever thought possible." Despite his progress, Adrian still faced moments of self-doubt. There were days when old habits crept back in, tempting him to revert to his former ways. During these times, Mr. Jameson reminded him that growth was a lifelong journey. "Nobody gets it right all the time," the elder said. "What matters is that you keep trying, and that you learn from your mistakes." One evening, as they wrapped up another training session, Adrian turned to Mr. Jameson with a question that had been weighing on his mind. "Do you ever regret anything? Like, is there something you wish you'd done differently?" The elder paused, considering the question carefully. "Of course, there are regrets," he admitted. "We all make mistakes, but dwelling on them doesn't help. What's important is learning from those experiences and using them to become better. Life is too short to waste on guilt or fear." Adrian nodded, feeling a renewed sense of determination. He realized that perfection wasn't the goal, growth was. And with Mr. Jameson by his side, he felt capable of achieving anything. As the weeks passed, Adrian's confidence grew, not just in his shooting, but in himself. He started setting higher goals, both personally and professionally. One of his biggest projects involved launching a foundation aimed at empowering marginalized communities. The initiative provided scholarships, mentorship programs, and resources to help individuals overcome barriers and achieve their dreams. Adrian poured his heart into the project, knowing it was a chance to create real, lasting change. Through it all, Mr. Jameson remained a constant source of support and inspiration. Their bond had evolved from teacher-student to something deeper, a genuine friendship built on mutual respect and shared values. Adrian often found himself wondering how different his life might have been if he hadn't met the elder that fateful day at the shooting range. "You've changed, Sonny," Mr. Jameson observed one afternoon as they packed up their gear. "Not just in how you shoot, but in how you carry yourself. You're becoming the person you were always meant to be." Adrian smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest. "I couldn't have done it without you," he said sincerely. "You've taught me things I'll carry with me for the rest of my life." The elder chuckled, patting Adrian on the shoulder. "Remember, the real work starts now. Keep pushing forward and don't forget where you came from." With those words echoing in his mind, Adrian stepped onto the range for another practice session. This time, however, he approached it with a newfound sense of purpose. Shooting was no longer just a hobby or a way to prove himself. It was a reminder of the journey he'd embarked upon and the lessons he'd learned along the way. As bullets flew and targets fell, Adrian felt a profound sense of peace. For the first time in years, he wasn't competing against anyone else. He was simply striving to be the best version of himself, a goal that, thanks to Mr. Jameson, now felt within reach. Adrian's life had undergone a transformation that even he hadn't anticipated. What started as a humiliating defeat at the shooting range had blossomed into a journey of self-discovery and growth. Under Mr. Jameson's guidance, Adrian not only improved his marksmanship, but also began to understand the deeper lessons behind the elder's teachings. The values of patience, humility, and perseverance weren't confined to the shooting range. They seeped into every aspect of his life. One crisp morning, as Adrian prepared for another day at the range, he reflected on how much he'd changed over the past few months. Gone was the brash billionaire who strutted around with an air of superiority. In his place stood a man grounded in gratitude and purpose. He no longer measured success by wealth or accolades. Instead, he found fulfillment in helping others and striving to be better each day. But despite these changes, Adrian still faced challenges, both internal and external, that tested his resolve. That day at the range, Adrian noticed a new group of visitors arriving. They were executives from one of his own companies, individuals he had worked closely with in the past. Dressed in expensive suits and carrying sleek briefcases, they looked out of place among the rugged simplicity of the facility. Adrian recognized them immediately and approached cautiously. "What brings you here?" he asked, his tone polite but guarded. "We heard about your hobby," one of them replied with a smirk, clearly amused by the idea of their boss spending time at a shooting range. "Thought we'd see it for ourselves." Adrian felt a flicker of irritation but quickly pushed it aside. He didn't want to revert to his old ways of reacting defensively or proving himself through competition. Instead, he invited them to join him. "Why don't you give it a try?" he suggested, gesturing toward the lanes. The executives exchanged glances, some intrigued, others hesitant. Eventually they agreed, eager to participate in what they assumed would be a light-hearted activity. Adrian handed them basic firearms and instructed them on safety protocols before stepping back to observe. As expected, most of them struggled to hit their targets. Their frustration grew with each miss, and soon the playful atmosphere turned tense. Seeing this unfold, Adrian couldn't help but chuckle softly. It reminded him of his own early days at the range, the arrogance, the impatience, and the eventual humbling realization that skill required effort. Just as he considered offering advice, Mr. Jameson appeared beside him, watching the scene unfold with quiet amusement. "They're like you once were," Mr. Jameson remarked, his voice low enough for only Adrian to hear. Thinking it's all about the gear and the title, Adrian nodded, smiling faintly. "Yeah, I know exactly how they feel. Maybe they need someone to remind them that there's more to life than appearances." With that, Adrian stepped forward and addressed the group. "Shooting isn't just about aiming and firing," he began, surprising even himself with his confidence. "It's about focus, discipline, and respect. For the weapon, for the process, and for yourself. If you rush it, you'll miss every time." His words caught the executives off guard. They weren't used to hearing Adrian speak so openly or philosophically. Intrigued, they listened intently as he demonstrated proper form and technique. Adrian encouraged them to slow down, breathe deeply, and concentrate on their aim rather than the outcome. To his surprise, their performance improved almost instantly. By the end of the session, several of them managed to hit their targets, earning cheers from the group. As the executives packed up their gear, one of them approached Adrian privately. "You've changed," the man said, his tone serious. "I mean really changed. We came here expecting to see the same old Adrian, but this is different." Adrian shrugged modestly. "People change when they realize they're not as invincible as they think. I learned that the hard way." The executive nodded thoughtfully. "Well, whatever it is, keep doing it. You're inspiring people, even if you don't realize it." Those words stayed with Adrian long after the executives left. For years, he had craved validation from others, seeking approval through wealth and achievements. Now he realized that true inspiration came from authenticity, not perfection. And while he still had moments of doubt, he no longer feared failure. Each setback was simply another opportunity to grow. Over the following weeks, Adrian continued to dedicate himself to his foundation, pouring resources and energy into creating programs that empowered marginalized communities. One of his proudest initiatives was a mentorship program aimed at young Black entrepreneurs. Through workshops, networking events, and funding opportunities, Adrian hoped to provide tools and support for individuals who might otherwise struggle to break into competitive industries. During one such event, Adrian found himself standing on stage addressing a room full of aspiring entrepreneurs. "When I started my first company, I thought success meant having the biggest bank account or the flashiest car," he admitted, his voice steady and sincere. "But I was wrong. Success is about making a difference, in your own life and in the lives of others. It's about lifting people up, not putting them down." The audience erupted into applause, moved by Adrian's honesty. Among those clapping was Mr. Jameson, who sat quietly in the back row watching with pride. After the event, the two men met outside the venue, where Adrian expressed his gratitude once again. "None of this would have happened without you," he said earnestly. "You showed me what it means to lead with integrity." Mr. Jameson chuckled warmly. I didn't show you anything, Sonny. You figured it out yourself. All I did was point you in the right direction. Adrian smiled, knowing the elder's modesty was part of what made him so remarkable. Still, I owe you everything. You've been more than a teacher. You've been a friend. Their bond had grown stronger with each passing day, transcending age, background, and circumstance. Adrian often marveled at how fate had brought them together, turning what could have been a fleeting encounter into a lifelong connection. Together they continued to visit the shooting range, practicing their skills and sharing stories. But, beyond the physical act of shooting, their sessions became spaces for reflection and growth. One evening, as they sat side by side watching the sunset, Mr. Jameson shared a story Adrian had never heard before. Back in the Army, I had a commanding officer who used to say, "Aim true, live true." It stuck with me because it wasn't just about shooting, it was about living. Every decision you make, every action you take, should align with who you are and who you want to become. Adrian absorbed the words, feeling their weight settle deep within him. Aim true, live true, he repeated softly. I like that. It's simple, but it says everything. The elder nodded approvingly. Exactly. Life doesn't have to be complicated. Just stay true to yourself and you'll find your way. As darkness fell and stars began to dot the sky, Adrian felt a profound sense of clarity. He realized that his journey wasn't defined by wealth or status. It was shaped by the relationships he built, the lessons he learned, and the impact he made on others. With Mr. Jameson by his side, he knew he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. And so Adrian's story continued, a tale of redemption, resilience, and the transformative power of unexpected mentors. Adrian's life had become a delicate balance between his past and his present. On one hand, he was still the same man who had built a fortune through innovation and ambition. On the other hand, he was someone entirely new, someone shaped by humility, empathy, and a desire to make a difference. The lessons he had learned from Mr. Jameson weren't just confined to the shooting range or his foundation work, they were woven into the fabric of his daily existence. Yet as much as Adrian had grown, there were moments when the weight of his old life threatened to pull him backward. One such moment came during a high-profile business meeting in downtown Manhattan. Adrian sat at the head of a long, polished table surrounded by executives, investors, and industry leaders. The room buzzed with energy as discussions unfolded about potential mergers, acquisitions, and market expansions. For years, these meetings had been Adrian's domain, the place where he thrived on strategy, negotiation, and dominance. But now, as he listened to the conversations around him, something felt off. The language being used was familiar. Profit, margins, competitive advantage, shareholder value. Yet to Adrian, it all sounded hollow. He couldn't help but compare this sterile environment to the warmth and authenticity he experienced at the shooting range with Mr. Jameson. Here, success was measured in numbers and deals. There, it was defined by effort, connection, and growth. The contrast left Adrian uneasy, though he tried to mask his discomfort behind a practiced smile. At one point, an executive leaned forward and addressed Adrian directly. We're looking at some aggressive moves to outpace our competitors, the man said confidently. What do you think? Should we go for broke? Adrian hesitated, his mind racing. In the past, he would have jumped at the opportunity to crush rivals and secure his company's dominance. But now, he found himself questioning the ethics of such tactics. Was winning worth sacrificing integrity? Did success justify harming others? These thoughts swirled in his mind as silence stretched across the room. Finally, Adrian spoke, choosing his words carefully. I think we need to consider not just what will benefit us in the short term, but also how our actions affect everyone involved, employees, customers, communities. Growth is important, but so is responsibility. The room fell silent. Some executives exchanged skeptical glances while others nodded thoughtfully. Adrian could sense their surprise. They weren't used to hearing him prioritize values over profits. But instead of feeling defensive, Adrian felt a quiet pride. He realized that his evolution wasn't just personal, it was influencing those around him, challenging them to rethink their own priorities. After the meeting ended, Adrian stepped outside into the bustling streets of Manhattan. The city always seemed louder after such intense discussions, its chaos mirroring the turmoil within him. As he walked, his phone buzzed with messages congratulating him on his bold stance. But Adrian knew better than to take credit. His perspective hadn't emerged in isolation. It had been shaped by countless hours spent listening to Mr. Jameson's stories and reflecting on his own mistakes. Later that evening, Adrian returned to the shooting range, seeking solace in its simplicity. When he arrived, he found Mr. Jameson waiting for him, leaning against a wooden bench with a knowing smile. "You look like you've got something on your mind," the elder observed, his voice calm and inviting. Adrian sighed, running, a hand through his hair. "It's complicated. Today I was in a meeting where decisions were being made that could hurt a lot of people, and for the first time I didn't feel comfortable going along with it. I actually spoke up, which surprised even me." Mr. Jameson chuckled softly. "Seems like you're starting to see the bigger picture. Tell me, how did it feel to stand up for what you believe in?" "It felt right," Adrian admitted. "But it also felt risky. What if people think I'm weak or indecisive? What if I lose their respect?" The elder shook his head gently. "Respect isn't given because you follow the crowd. It's earned when you stay true to your principles. Trust me, Sonny, leadership isn't about pleasing everyone. It's about doing what's right, even when it's hard." Adrian nodded, slowly, letting the words sink in. Over the next hour, they practiced together, focusing on precision and patience. With each shot, Adrian felt a sense of clarity returning. Shooting had always been more than just a hobby for him. It was a metaphor for life. Every decision required focus. Every action carried consequences, and every outcome depended on preparation and intent. As they packed up their gear, Adrian turned to Mr. Jameson with a question that had been lingering in his mind. "Do you ever worry about making the wrong choice? About failing?" Mr. Jameson paused, considering the question carefully. "Of course I worry. Everyone does. But failure isn't the end. It's part of the journey. What matters is how you respond. Do you let it break you, or do you use it to build yourself stronger?" Those words resonated deeply with Adrian. He realized that fear of failure had held him back for far too long, keeping him trapped in a cycle of arrogance and self-doubt. Now, armed with new perspectives and tools, he felt capable of facing whatever challenges lay ahead. Over the following weeks, Adrian continued to push boundaries, both personally and professionally. At work, he advocated for ethical practices and sustainable growth, often clashing with colleagues who prioritized short-term gains over long-term impact. While some resisted his ideas, others began to embrace them, recognizing the value of responsible leadership. Slowly but surely, Adrian's influence spread, inspiring change within his organization. Outside of work, Adrian remained committed to his foundation, expanding its reach and impact. One of his most ambitious projects involved partnering with schools in underserved neighborhoods to provide STEM education and mentorship programs. Through hands-on workshops and interactive sessions, students learned skills like coding, robotics, and design thinking, all while discovering their potential to create meaningful change. During one such workshop, Adrian met a young girl named Maya. She was shy at first, hesitant to participate in group activities. But as the session progressed, her curiosity took over, and she began asking questions that impressed even Adrian. By the end of the day, Maya approached him with a simple, yet profound statement. "Thank you for showing me I can be anything I want to be." Adrian smiled, feeling a lump rise in his throat. Moments like these reminded him why he had chosen this path, to empower others and give them hope. He knelt down to Maya's level and replied, "You don't need me to tell you that, Maya. You already have everything you need inside you. Just keep aiming true." As the weeks turned into months, Adrian's bond with Mr. Jameson deepened further. Their conversations grew richer, touching on topics ranging from history and philosophy to personal struggles and aspirations. One evening, as they sat watching the sunset, Mr. Jameson shared a story about his late wife, a woman who had inspired him to persevere despite adversity. Her memory served as a constant reminder of love, resilience, and the importance of leaving a legacy. "She taught me that life is about planting seeds," Mr. Jameson explained. "Sometimes you won't see the fruits of your labor, but that doesn't mean your efforts are wasted. Someone, somewhere, will benefit from what you've done." Adrian absorbed the words, feeling their truth resonate within him. He realized that his journey wasn't just about transforming himself. It was about creating ripples that would extend far beyond his lifetime. Whether through his foundation, his leadership, or his friendship with Mr. Jameson, Adrian was sowing seeds of change, one step at a time. And so, Adrian's story continued, a testament to the power of humility, perseverance, and the transformative impact of unexpected mentors. With each passing day, he grew closer to becoming the person he was always meant to be, someone who aimed true, lived true, and inspired others to do the same. Adrian's journey had reached a point where the lessons he had learned were no longer just guiding principles. They had become part of who he was. Every decision he made, every action he took, reflected the values instilled in him by Mr. Jameson: humility, discipline, and a relentless commitment to making a difference. Yet as much as Adrian had grown, life still presented challenges that tested his resolve and reminded him of how far he had come. One crisp autumn morning, Adrian received news that would shake the foundations of everything he had built. One of his companies, a tech startup aimed at providing affordable internet access to rural communities, was facing allegations of data misuse. A whistleblower had accused the company of collecting user information without consent and selling it to third parties. The accusation spread like wildfire across social media, sparking outrage among customers and investors alike. For Adrian, the news hit like a punch to the gut. He had poured his heart into this project, believing it could bridge gaps and empower underserved populations. To see it tainted by scandal felt like a betrayal, not just of his vision but of the trust people had placed in him. Panic threatened to overwhelm him, but then he remembered Mr. Jameson's words. "Failure isn't the end, it's part of the journey." Determined to address the situation head-on, Adrian called an emergency meeting with his team. The room was tense as executives scrambled to explain what had gone wrong. Some suggested issuing a generic apology and moving on. Others proposed downplaying the issue to minimize damage. But Adrian knew these approaches wouldn't solve the problem. They would only deepen the mistrust. "Listen," Adrian said firmly, standing up to command attention. "This isn't just about protecting our reputation. It's about doing the right thing for our users, for our employees, and for ourselves. We need to be transparent. If we messed up, we admit it. If we can fix it, we do. And if we can't, we own up to that too." His words silenced the room. For many in the group, Adrian's stance was unexpected. Transparency wasn't always the easiest path, especially in business, but it was the most honest one. Over the next few days, Adrian worked tirelessly to investigate the claims, collaborating with legal teams and independent auditors to uncover the truth. When the findings confirmed that certain practices had indeed violated user privacy, Adrian didn't hesitate to take responsibility. In a public statement released via video, Adrian addressed the controversy directly. "I founded this company with the goal of connecting people and improving lives," he began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "But today I stand before you not as a leader who succeeded, but as one who failed to ensure those goals were achieved responsibly. Our actions have fallen short of your expectations, and mine. For that, I am deeply sorry." He went on to outline steps the company would take to rectify the situation, including halting all questionable data practices, implementing stricter oversight measures, and compensating affected users. Adrian ended the statement with a promise. "We will rebuild trust, not through words but through actions. This is a turning point, not just for our company, but for me personally. I will hold myself accountable, and I ask you to hold us accountable too." The response was mixed. Some praised Adrian for his transparency and accountability, while others remained skeptical, questioning whether his apology was genuine or merely a PR stunt. Despite the criticism, Adrian felt a sense of relief. He had chosen integrity over convenience, staying true to the values Mr. Jameson had taught him. And though the road ahead would be difficult, he knew it was the right path. That evening, Adrian drove to the shooting range, seeking solace in its familiar surroundings. As he walked in, he found Mr. Jameson waiting for him, a knowing look in his eyes. "I saw your statement," the elder said simply. "Not an easy thing to do." Adrian sighed, running a hand through his hair. "No, it wasn't. Part of me wanted to defend myself, to shift the blame. But I realized that wouldn't solve anything. People deserve honesty, even when it hurts." Mr. Jameson nodded approvingly. "You've grown, Sonny. Remember when you first came here? You wouldn't have admitted fault back then. Now look at you, facing adversity with courage and grace." Adrian smiled faintly, feeling a mix of pride and gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you. You've been my anchor through all of this," the elder chuckled softly. "Anchors are heavy, Sonny. They keep you grounded so you don't drift away. But don't forget, you're the captain of your ship. You steer it where it needs to go." Their conversation shifted to lighter topics as they prepared for a practice session. Shooting had always been more than just a hobby for Adrian. It was a way to clear his mind and refocus. With each shot, he let go of doubts and fears, channeling his energy into precision and control. By the time they finished, Adrian felt a renewed sense of purpose. Over the following weeks, Adrian threw himself into rebuilding trust, not just in his company, but in his personal relationships as well. He reached out to former colleagues and friends whom he had alienated during his arrogant years, apologizing for past behavior and expressing a desire to reconnect. Many were surprised by his sincerity, but welcomed the opportunity to rebuild bridges. At the same time, Adrian continued to expand his foundation's initiatives, focusing on projects that promoted digital literacy and ethical technology use. Through workshops, seminars, and partnerships with advocacy groups, he aimed to educate both creators and consumers about the importance of responsible innovation. His efforts earned recognition from industry leaders and activists alike, solidifying his reputation as a champion of positive change. One evening, as Adrian sat in his office reflecting on the past year, he received a call from Maya, the young girl he had met during one of his foundation's workshops. Her voice bubbled with excitement as she shared that she had won a regional coding competition. "I did it," she exclaimed. "Just like you said, I aimed true, and now I'm living true." Adrian grinned, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. "That's amazing, Maya. Keep going. You're going to change the world." Moments like these reminded Adrian why he had chosen this path, to create opportunities for others and inspire them to dream bigger. Whether through his work, his relationships, or his friendship with Mr. Jameson, Adrian was leaving behind a legacy rooted in kindness, perseverance, and authenticity. As winter approached, Adrian and Mr. Jameson spent their final session of the season watching snowflakes fall gently onto the quiet range. The elder turned to Adrian with a thoughtful expression. "You know, Sonny, life is like shooting. Sometimes you miss, sometimes you hit. But the real victory isn't in the target. It's in the effort you put into aiming." Adrian nodded, feeling a profound sense of peace. "Thanks for teaching me that, and so much more. I wouldn't be here without you." Mr. Jameson smiled, patting Adrian on the shoulder. "You've done the hard work, Sonny. Now keep living true." And with that, Adrian stepped off the range, ready to face whatever lay ahead. His journey had transformed him from a brash billionaire into a humble leader, guided by the wisdom of an unexpected mentor. Through trials and triumphs, failures and successes, Adrian had discovered the true meaning of growth. Not perfection, but progress. And as long as he kept aiming true, he knew he would continue to make a difference, one shot, one step, one life at a time.